Hey guys, what's up? It's Dragoon here, back once again with Matt from Matt's Mad Lab. How are you doing today?
No, I'm a little tired, but I'm doing good.
All right.
A little emotionally drained as well.
Well, that's the whole reason we brought you on the show today. So if you guys recall, we did episode 1 of the Code Geass Retrospective featuring myself, the expert, and Matt, the self-proclaimed amateur of the series. So we just finished the first season of Code Geass, and we wanted to bring up the follow-up episode to see how you have felt about what's happened in these past 20 to 25 episodes.
Well,
It's certainly been a wild ride between now and the last video.
It has been a wild ride, and obviously I like it enough to keep watching. But something I feel like is Lelouch is going down a really dark path.
He sure is. The descent to darkness is, in my opinion, definitely a strong theme in this series.
And I don't know if I would like to see him redeem himself from this dark path or be consumed by it. I don't know which one would be more interesting. Because, I mean, you've seen the redemption trope a lot. Mm-hmm. It's in Star Wars, it's in Avatar: Last Airbender. It's a big popular trope, and for good reason.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But not too often do you see somebody actually get consumed and destroyed by it. Especially the main character get consumed and destroyed by that darkness.
Right. And it certainly will be interesting to see what comes into play in the second half of the series. Whereas I thought it was kind of funny when we were watching the last couple episodes, you thought that was it. You thought there wasn't another. Yeah. You didn't know there was a second season.
At first, I thought that was it because everything was building up. It was a final climactic battle that was going on, and the way it was described to me, it's like, oh, we got 2 more episodes. I was like, oh, in the whole series?
Whoa!
But no, I really like also how they developed Suzaku's character.
Yeah, certainly he has changed quite a bit since near the beginning.
Because in the beginning, he didn't want to hurt anybody, didn't want to kill anybody, but now he feels like he knows what true hatred feels like and the true desire to end a life.
I mean, that's even one of his lines. It's something along the lines of, I know exactly what it feels like to really want to kill somebody now. And so with that being said, let's talk about some key moments that have stuck out with you between, I think after the first episode we made, you had seen 4 or 5 episodes at that point.
We've seen 2.
We only watched the first 2 when you made that video?
We only watched the first 2.
Well then, there is a lot more content to cover. So what's really stood out to you in the past 23 episodes then? What
really stood out to me was how easily Zero was able to create the Black Knights.
Yeah, and that was something actually really funny because we were talking at one point and I made some sort of reference to the Black Knights. And I was like, oh yeah, it's the Black Knights. And then he was like, yeah, just so you know, I haven't gotten to the point in which Zero actually makes the Black Knights. So
cool reference.
I was like, crud, I forgot. Like, I just thought it happened. And it happened like the next episode.
Like the next episode. And I feel like I knew the series was building up to that anyway, because Zero's not going to go topple a government on his own.
No, he can't be doing that.
He needs soldiers, like he said.
You get to hide in the shadows and watch others do your dirty work.
That's what he excels at. He should keep doing it.
Right.
I don't think hiding in the shadows and letting someone else do your dirty work is necessarily a bad thing.
Right. That's what kings do.
It depends. A lot of people do that. And what's dirty work? What's dirty work? Obviously that means, it's something evil or bad or that goes against, morals of some sort. But that's still all based on perspective.
Ambiguous.
Yeah.
Interesting note that you sort of brought up here. That line Suzaku has in episode 25, you hide in the shadows and let everybody else do your dirty work, entirely contrasts the line Lelouch has in episode 1, in which when he's playing chess against that nobleman, he says, if a king doesn't lead, why should he expect his subjects to follow? Which is
an interesting point. I didn't remember that line. But now that you bring it up, it's very interesting. But Lelouch does lead.
Yeah.
He does get his hands dirty. Like, before, spoiler warning, not only got abducted, he was on the front lines in the heart of the Tokyo settlement, going after Princess, what's her face?
Clovis? Or Clovis.
Princess Clovis.
Cornelia?
Princess Cornelia. Clovis is a very pretty princess, too.
Yes, he was. Oh, those luscious locks.
And in every battle, Lelouch has been in the battle, on the front lines almost, if not always.
Even I made that comment to you when we were watching. It was like, don't you like how Lelouch augments his nightmare with a little crown thing? Even though he has like the most basic unit.
Yeah, and he's not a skilled pilot by any means.
No.
If I was in his place, I would give no distinguishing mark to mine.
I wouldn't either, but that's his ego, I guess.
He has a big ego, and that's one of his character flaws, which I think it's been very fitting and well developed through the past 25 episodes.
If it weren't for his big ego, sometimes he wouldn't be in the messes he gets himself into.
But it also, on the flip side, if it wasn't for his big ego, would he have even founded the Black Knights?
He probably wouldn't have even done any of this stuff to begin with. He needs that character trait in order to be the person he is and to have the drive to fulfill his ambitions.
I also really like the contrast between Suzaku and Zero, or Lelouch, that's been going on the whole series, because they're both trying to change the world. They want the same end goal. They're going about it two separate ways, though. Lelouch is trying to tear everything down and rebuild it, while Suzaku wants to change it from the inside. And I feel like Lelouch is actually pulling Suzaku into the darkness with him, because of the whole line Suzaku said, "Oh, I know what it's like to really want to kill somebody now."
So,
and he even shot it.
Yeah.
Lelouch.
Yeah, right at the end of the series. That's how it ends.
Yeah.
He shoots him. And I just love that scene because his hand is just shaking the whole time. Because he doesn't want to shoot his friend.
And you can really see the detail on his face, like the rage and the raw emotion he's feeling.
And the voice acting in that scene was phenomenal.
Phenomenal. Because Lelouch and Suzaku were childhood friends, and for most of these series they've been friends up to this point. But now they've been pitted against each other because of the two separate paths they've chosen. So switching tones a bit, something that I don't entirely understand, or let's just say understand for now, is why Colin was so upset when she found out who Zero was.
I think Colin was so upset because she only knows Lelouch as being like a rich Britannian. And so she thinks...
I always forget he's...
Yeah,
go on.
She thinks that he was deceiving everybody, all the Japanese. So she thinks he's like, he was doing all of this just to build himself up as a Britannian, and then he was going to betray everybody. That's why she was so upset when they're on Kamine Island. I think they could have illustrated that a bit more. They might in the second season. It might come around more in the second season, but I didn't get the feeling... You didn't get that from what you saw.
From what I've seen so far. Because it's hard to argue with the results that Lelouch is getting.
Right, and I think that's even a line from the show. I think Detard says that.
Yeah, Detard is another character entirely.
He sure is.
He just wants to see the world burn.
He is exactly that type of guy. I love when he busts in to the newsroom that he used to work at with the guns, and he's like, you're gonna broadcast this, and you are not turning it off.
Yeah, and that perfectly sums up his character right there. And for the longest time, I thought he was a plant by, like, Princess Cornelia.
You mean Princess Clovis?
Princess Clovis, to, kind of dig up information on the Black Knights and find out who Zero really was. But judging from the past few episodes, I'm pretty sure that's not the case.
You don't think he's a spy anymore? I
don't think he's a spy for Britannia anymore. He might change sides again, because he's just somebody who craves the chaos and the destruction.
Yeah.
And if Zero can't continue to provide that for him, he probably definitely will switch sides.
So you think he's kind of fickle?
I think he's very fickle.
So, back to talking about iconic moments. What's really stood out to you? I know there are a few...
Jupiter stood out to me.
Well, Jupiter stands out to everybody, especially if you have a telescope. But there are a few very key moments that take place along the timeline of the first season. With the first one definitely being Mao, I think. His little character arc.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, for the very first time you see somebody else with the power of the Geass.
Yeah, which really opens up the doors to how many other people could have the Geass out there, and what other ways can it manifest itself. Also, another big point along with that is we get to meet V2,
Yeah, but
for the first time.
in V2 is
V2
a mystery on its own.
Is a mystery on his own, but in a way, he's also similar to C2 because they're both mysteries.
Yeah, and V2 is the one who tells Suzaku about Geass to begin with.
Yeah.
He shows up when Suzaku's in the hospital.
And besides V2 and C2, that opens up the door to more of them existing. And from the flashbacks that we see with C2 throughout the series, which is also, in my opinion, milestones, you can see that it seems like she was part of some group at some point a while ago, because it always seems, I remember there was this one scene where it seemed like there were a bunch of people with the Geass symbol on their foreheads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I remember what you're talking about.
And there was almost like a church setting as well. And then there was just a bunch of death and destruction.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. Yeah, I remember that scene. That'll be really interesting to see where they take that aspect.
Yeah.
Because C2 is a character who essentially is kind of like a blank slate at the beginning. All you really know is that she gives the power to the main character, and then she's just likes pizza.
Yeah.
But
and
she
then
has
as soon
so
as
much
V2 gets introduced, well, there's a little bit when they're on Kamine Island the first time.
Yeah.
But when V2 gets introduced, it opens up a lot, almost like a window into C2's personality, because she starts exhibiting more human emotions besides the love for pizza.
Mm-hmm. And then, you know, when people accidentally look into her mind when she's activating her powers and they touch her or whatever.
Yeah.
And she just wants to hold all that back. She doesn't want people knowing anything about her memories or anything like that. Because I don't think she wants to remember them.
Well, but you've seen the series.
But I have seen it.
And I have not. But that is an interesting point.
So let's talk about one of easily the best or the worst scenes, depending on your perspective. The part with Yuffie.
The part with Yuffie was just... it was heart-wrenching, to say the least.
It was.
Because everything seemed to start going well. And even though Zero wanted to somehow use Yuffie by having her assassinate him, but he comes back to life at the very end, he even decided...
He decided against that.
Against that. He wasn't going to do it. He was going to work with Yuffie because Yuffie was honest and kind-hearted, and she was going to be a real force for change with the Japanese settlement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, go figure, it's at that point they introduced the lack of Zero or Lelouch's ability to turn off his Geass.
Mm-hmm. Just like Mao.
And he just mistakenly just like, I could tell you to kill all the Japanese.
And you wouldn't be able to do anything. And then she tries to resist it, but she just can't.
Mm-hmm.
And man, that massacre is just terrible, man. It's so bad. And she's the one who does the first shot with Zero's gun.
But that's what Zero wanted in the first place, too. Before he met with Yuffie and she changed his mind. That's what he wanted when the contract was made, because not necessarily the Japanese dying, but the means to build his resistance even further to the point where his resistance was able to directly confront the Britannians in the Tokyo settlement.
Yeah. Yeah, he totally played off of that, even though it was really hurtful to him.
And I almost feel like that the Geass has a mind of its own, in a way, because it's said that whoever uses the Geass lives a lonely life.
Yeah.
And Lelouch won't be able to accomplish all he wants to unless he lets go of essentially all his earthly ties.
Yeah.
Which in some ways he voluntarily does, in other ways it's forced upon him. And I think the part with Yuffie was definitely forced upon him.
You could even argue that, I think in this case it's a little bit of both, but the whole thing in which he had to essentially rewrite Shirley's memory so that she didn't remember anything about him. He lost that friendship with her.
Yeah, that was also kind of forced upon him, but in a way he did that to himself as well.
It was his actions that made that be forced upon him.
Yeah, because his actions led to the death of her father because he got carried away. Mm-hmm. But there was no way he could have predicted his Geass would have turned on permanently.
Yeah, absolutely no way.
And even an offhand comment like, oh, I could tell you to kill all the Japanese. At what point do comments become commands? There's a fine line in the wording, which is very interesting as well.
After that entire scene is what sparks Suzaku's hatred and his desire to kill once again, because he did kill his father.
Mm-hmm.
but he thought by killing his father he could bring peace.
Yeah.
And it clearly didn't really work.
Yeah.
There's still so much hatred for the Japanese by the Britannians, and the Japanese even don't like Suzaku because he thinks they think he is the Britannians' pawn. And
yeah.
So they don't like him. The Britannians don't like him. He's in a pretty sticky situation.
He is, but
whereas the Japanese love Zero.
He seems to always do well for himself, though, despite he has a certain tenacity.
He has the tenacity and the drive to try to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
So that sparks him to go after Zero, and that's where really the climax of season 1 begins and ends with Zero and Suzaku facing off on Kaname Island. Because Nanali's kidnapped by we don't know who. You could assume.
I mean, I assume V2 because they showed him talking, and then she was kidnapped.
Yeah. So by V2.
Maybe she volunteered to go.
Maybe.
I don't know.
But Nanali's kidnapped by V2 and taken away. So Zero leaves the battlefield, which just ruins the Black Knights.
Well, we'll see.
But they didn't like it at first, at least.
They didn't like it at first, and I have a few things to nitpick with that, too.
Yeah.
Especially because Toto is supposed to be this tactical genius, and you could just say, you know, this shows Lelouch's lack of experience as an actual leader, because he didn't have somebody with a backup plan who saw enough of the picture to take the reins without him.
Yeah. And Ogi is his second in command.
Yeah.
But even then,
how much did Ogi really know?
How much did he know? Who knows?
And then he was also incapacitated because he was shot.
Not only was he incapacitated because he was shot, he was incapacitated mentally because of who he shot him. That girl he loves. Ogi was not in a good place mentally or physically in that scene.
And, I mean, Totoro, even before that scene, Totoro was not his second in command, but was in charge of all the military operations.
Yeah.
So you would think that, at least for this battle, Totoro would have the full picture of how the battle was supposed to play out.
But from what we can see, he didn't.
Maybe, I mean, obviously, that's the only way I can explain it, is he didn't have the full picture.
Yeah.
Which is kind of disappointing, but it does build drama and tension.
Right. So what do you think is going to happen then? Because it ends with one of the
biggest everyone's gonna die.
Cliffhangers in
everyone's
the world.
Dead. That's it. We're going to come back season 2. Everyone's dead.
Everybody died.
Everybody died.
Well, Nina does have that giant bomb.
She does have that giant bomb. I'm being wary of a Deus Machina right now, because I've seen so many other shows and animes do it where things get like really tough,
bad.
And then a big climactic incident happens. Like
First Master.
Tenro Island.
Oh, that scene. It's like that's like a bad Deus Ex Machina right there.
Yeah, most Deus Ex Machinas, in my opinion, are bad, but sometimes they can be done tastefully and contribute to the story. But I think there's always a better way to go about it than having to rely on a Deus Machina.
Right. So you think everybody's gonna be dead, but a Deus Ex Machina will happen?
Honestly, I'm wary of that. I'm worried of that. Because that's what I mostly have experienced in other media. But I feel like, in many ways, Code Geass is going to differentiate itself by how it handles this. And I have no prediction as to what will happen. I probably have several predictions after I see the first episode of season 2.
Yeah.
But right now, there are just so many things happening, so many loose ends that it could go any which way.
Yeah, and I would agree with you in that sense. So, to wrap up this particular video, I don't know if it was clear in the first one, I doubt it, but who's your favorite character?
My favorite character, I mean, Lloyd is still a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I really like Lloyd, but if I'm going to be serious, Lloyd is more my favorite comic relief character.
Yeah,
but if I'm going to be serious, my favorite character would have to be Suzaku.
Oh, you really like Suzaku?
I really like Suzaku.
So you're the Suzaku side of life.
And you're the Lelouch side.
That's funny, actually.
We're going to have to try to kill each other someday.
Right now?
No. Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, those are cool picks, and they work together. So you get to see them interact a lot together, which is cool.
I also like the dynamic between Lloyd and
Rakshata. Yeah, that's really, really cool to see their past rivalry spark up on opposite sides in this battle.
I really like That's my second favorite dynamic, second only to Suzaku and Lelouch.
Right, yeah, it's a pretty cool one. But with that being said, all we can do now is stay tuned to see where things go in the next season. 25 more episodes to go, and we'll definitely be back again to talk about where we are in the series and what kind of experiences we have been facing at that point. So with that, we hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and we'll catch you guys next time. It's really hard to see.
Are we live? Are we live?